It's generally more destructive and easier to be pessimistic. Our minds go there. When there's a problem, we catastrophize. When we look at a tree, we only look at everything above the soil, not recognizing that there's a massive root system beneath the tree, bigger and spread out even more than the canopy. Everything above ground is what we see and reflect on a daily basis. Thoughts, problems, encounters. The root system beneath the soil is happening whether we think it's happening or not. It's there. It's established. It's a firm part of you. I mean, it is there. Anything worthwhile,
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot. Time, energy, money. It is what it is. Nothing great is ever built or achieved overnight. All right, 11. Let's go.
Pod 11. Cool.
Research.
Yeah. So research by Marcora from the University of Kent. So he focuses on explanatory styles and how it impacts human performance.
Mm-hmm.
So he took a group of trained cyclists and revealed that people with optimistic explanatory styles kind of boost their performance. In fact, he qualified or quantified? Which word is it? I'm going to say qualified, but you edit it if I'm wrong. Qualified it by seeing that people with positive explanatory styles lasted 18% longer in a time to exhaustion test compared to control groups. And so what psychologists and sociologists are finding is, like, obviously this is in like the endurance world, but they're extending it out to business and performance and relationships.
A lot of crossover.
Right. And so the thing is, like, who wouldn't want an 18% boost in performance with a tool?
Sure.
So having said that, so optimistic explanatory style is marked by three things. It's temporary, it's limited in scope, and is attributed to external factors rather than self-worth. So that's optimistic. The pessimistic explanatory style is marked by...
Explaining to who? Explanatory style
to yourself.
So you're talking about the self-talk.
Right.
The way you speak to yourself.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. So self-talk as the general topic, and there's two main forms. One is optimistic, which is marked by temporary, limited in scope, and external. Pessimistic style is marked by believing that it's indefinite and that it's pervasive and identifies you as a person. So to wrap this up, and I'll give you the mic. The lacrosse coach at West Point, coaching the team during practice, and they were just like fumbling everywhere, bad passes, poor defense, all that. So he stops practice, grabs a lacrosse ball, and chucks it into the stands. He's like, "This isn't us. It must be the ball." And then they go back and they kind of pick it up.
And they start crushing it.
Right. But what he did there was, like, he kind of externalized it. He's like, "I know you guys are better than this." Him saying it was the ball was silly.
External factor.
Yeah. Limited in scope.
Temporary.
And temporary. And so I thought that was really good. I want to get your perspective on it. You can take it where you want, but just kind of touch on it professionally and personally, if you can draw on some examples.
I wish I had heard this 15 years ago. Thanks for being late.
Now we're here.
So the way I see it is, like, generally 50,000 foot view is better and easier and more productive to be optimistic than pessimistic. It's generally more destructive and easier to be pessimistic. Our minds go there. When there's a problem, we catastrophize. I'm speaking from my own personal, I did this for years.
Yeah.
And I focused on me as the actor.
Put a pin in that. So am I understanding you when you say that correctly, that you could not see yourself as the actor? You were just the actor?
Maybe both. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's that deep stuff.
Yeah.
Probably both. Versus whatever the problem is right now, it's temporary. This too shall pass. Limited in duration, or is that the same thing?
Yeah. So optimistic is marked by they're temporary, Limited in scope.
Limited in scope. Okay, so
Yep.
so limited in scope. This does not mean I'm a failure at everything. It just means that I'm not really good at this one thing.
That one's really like derailed me. That one.
Yeah, same.
Like I just blanket the failure to everything I do.
Right. And that's how we catastrophize. And then we end up getting stuck in our own cycle of negative self-talk.
Sure.
And then focusing on external factors does not negate personal responsibility.
Sure.
And I think it's important to make the distinction, because focusing on external factors just places understanding to yourself that you're not perfect and you're working with what you have. If I can alter step 3, I think we have a winning combination for the whole world to use for positive self-talk.
I love winning combos. So
The one thing I would change, we're not even going to talk about the pessimistic one other than to understand what we should stop doing.
Sure.
We should stop throwing the baby out with the bathwater, meaning it's not everything. It's not going to last forever. It's not infinite, and it's not broad, right? But I would phrase it as positive self-talk that's going to get you out of a rut, that's going to keep your mind focused on progress and not the pitfall, which is number 1, it's just temporary. Number 2, it's very limited in scope to a very specific thing. You are not a failure at life because you fail at X, Y, or Z. And number 3, what can I control? That is to say, I would reframe it from even focusing on external factors to just, what is it that I can do different? Whether informed by the situation or events or circumstance or not. Meaning, in this specific pain, this loss, what can I do different? What do I have power to do that I just haven't been doing? What types of accountability can I place on myself that I haven't been? And so, not the professional. I mean, this is obviously backed by research for a reason. But I think sometimes the danger is we focus on the external factors too much. It's their fault. I'm not getting it because of them, because of this, because of that. I think if you look outside of the mirror too much, then that ends up being our focus. I think we can fall into that trap very easily.
Yeah. I think that's a good point as for the external factor piece. I'm just threading it together. Again, I'm bringing back depth psychology because I think this is related, but there's something called like the shadow parts of yourself, things that you've like either not confronted or dealt with that keep influencing your current actions. And where I'm going with this was in regards to external factors. If your shadow has been to blame or to outsource responsibility on things you do have control over, I think the linchpin question becomes, what is my shadow keeping me doing, or what is it preventing me from doing? I think that's the question you have to confront when, if you have enough awareness to see, okay, I've historically blamed, outsourced my wisdom or whatever, and not really looked at what I have agency over. You need to look at that question of, what is my shadow continually influencing me to do, or what is it preventing me from doing?
I get the shadow analogy better than you can imagine. Long time ago, my therapist talked to me about a tree. And if you look at a tree, there's 2 parts to a tree. And there's the part that we see, the canopy, right? Everything from the trunk, everything above soil, and all the branches and the leaves. But if you look at full cross-section of a tree, there's a root system. That root system is oftentimes 2 to 3 times bigger than the canopy that we see. What does that symbolize? So when we look at a tree, we only look at everything above the soil, not recognizing that there's a massive root system beneath the tree, bigger and spread out even more than the canopy. If you look at these pictures, they're massive. Everything above ground is what we see and reflect on a daily basis. Thoughts, problems, encounters. The root system beneath the soil is happening whether we think it's happening or not. It's there. It's established. It's a firm part of you. I mean, it is there. It's bigger, it's larger, and it's more in charge. And that shadow that you're talking about is that root system. And there's all sorts of thought patterns, perceptions, judgments that we've made about ourselves and other people and situations that we don't realize is actively affecting the canopy that we do see on a day-to-day basis. We walk into a room and we judge someone based on what that root system has already informed our central nervous system years ago. We walk into a fight and a disagreement, and that root system has informed how we're going to react, how we're going to perceive things. Not until you can start deconstructing that root system, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time for you to actually understand, well, I don't want to react like that, but here's why I do. It's because of this thing that happened when I was 7 years old and I've never since reconciled it. How do I stop it? It has a bigger effect. That root system, 99.9% of people don't even think about it. We don't think about it, but it's there. That subconscious is there.
Right.
At all times, informing, feeding, altering our projections, our perceptions, thought patterns.
I wrote something down a few weeks ago. I'm going to paraphrase. Like, until you confront the hard questions of your life, there are forces running autonomously beneath the surface that are beyond your perceived reality.
Or control.
Or control.
That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part.
It just makes me question. You bring up a good point of like how much of what I'm like seeing with my physical eyes or experiencing as a human is accurate.
Another wonderful analogy. And these analogies, it's like really meant to be meditated on.
Sure.
So they're not just like quick fixes to anything. Same therapist, brilliant, talks about lenses. Each trauma is a lens. So what you end up having, if you've ever seen like a watchmaker, they have like several lenses and they're,
they lift them up,
but there's several different ones.
Yeah.
The one that really, really clearly comes to mind right now is Toy Story. Yeah. You all old enough for Toy Story? You know Toy Story? Okay. Don't, yeah, of course. This guy just started driving. He knows Toy Story. I think it's Toy Story 2.
Okay.
I think it's Toy Story 2. Just bear with me here.
Yeah.
You're going to have to find a shot of this one too. When Woody was being sold to this guy and he was all messed up and they called in this little short toy fixer. I don't remember. Yeah. And he comes in to patch up Woody and repaint him and he sets up his shop, but he puts these glasses on and there's like 4 or 5 lenses.
Yeah.
And so every trauma, every experience is a lens through which you're seeing something. But over time, your lenses get fogged, muddied by other lenses.
Sure.
And just the lenses just stack.
Yeah.
And so a real big question, and you can ask them for one problem at a time. Why is my reaction always anger? What do I think is being said versus what is actually being said? What am I feeling versus what is actually happening? The two are usually not the same. And so really understanding like how those, I think they're usually traumas that are responsible for lenses, but they could be other things too. They could be memories, good or bad, right? That inform how we see a situation. And kind of mastering what that is. I would tell my younger self, I really would. I'd be like, hey, there's a lot of things that you perceive that are not so. There's a lot of things that you think about yourself or think about how you have to be that are just not accurate. Let me show you why. This and this happened at this age that told you this is what it meant to be loved or to give love, or this is how you get or receive love. Not true. Mic drop. We can stop right now. I mean, it's like, it's really frustrating.
So the lenses kind of analogy, right?
It's not about removing the lenses. That's the tricky part.
I was going to ask you, what's been your path inside that analogy?
It's almost impossible to remove the lenses. You just have to clean each one up. And that's tough too. 10 lenses, 20 lenses, childhood trauma, and a lot of tough times kind of solidify lenses.
It reminds me, I think his name's Dr. Dave Rabin. Sorry if I'm butchering that. But he's the founder of Apollo Neuro. It's a wearable device that actually influences nervous system regulation. He's also a psychiatrist. And he does a lot of interesting work around PTSD with, I think, veterans. I heard him say one time, like healing is nearly impossible until the body and nervous system feel safe. And so he goes into, a lot of the psychedelic assisted therapy stuff where on a neurobiological level, the rate of return on that medicine is like, you can drop into that safety, like you're putting a turbocharger on the process versus talking your way through. Now
it's probably not a preferred method at all because it just treats the symptom and not the cause.
Yeah. And so I'm just, that's where I'm curious too with just this, like, I guess therapy and psychology in general is like, how do we handle someone who has multiple lenses, which is most, maybe all of us, on top of like a biological system that is inflamed, scared, nervous,
tired.
It feels like, what if traditional talk therapy isn't fast enough? I'm not saying I have an answer or reply to that. It's just something that I think about. It's like, man,
my gut.
Yeah.
Just having been through traditional talk therapy, I don't think there's a lot of ways to speed this stuff up. Nor do you want to. My gut tells me, and I don't know all the methodologies that are out there, but what took 40 years to accumulate is not going away in 1 year.
Do you think that's why it's so intimidating for a lot of people?
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of return fast enough. 100%. We're, in the age of Amazon same day shipping, I can order something right now and have it in 2 hours. I don't even need to go to a store.
Yeah.
Healing cannot be accelerated. This is my personal experience, but I don't think you want to accelerate something that took so long to accumulate. It just seems counterintuitive to everything that we know about how life works.
Yeah.
It took you 40 years to accumulate all this pain and trauma, all these negative intrusive thoughts, and you think it's going to go away in a year? You probably won't even uncover it for 2. all the while, good things are happening. New mental models are being formed.
Yep.
Right. That is the one thing we do know. You know this. You're the professional. Like the neuroplasticity. Like it's the human mind is remarkable in its ability to do that. But like anything else, like physical activity, it takes time to build and grow a muscle and to chisel it and to really maximize it. I don't think we want to get into the realm of speeding things up. My gut is that we will just be addressing symptoms and not the cause. And it's only a matter of time before the cause blows up. Because it's all happening because of the cause. There's a root cause here.
I mean, this is a question directed to me, but I want your perspective on it. I sometimes wonder, like, is it worth it? Like, we talk about, okay, healing, therapy, psychological, mental models, physical fitness, like all this stuff that kind of pours into human development, essentially. When you zoom out, it's like, it's an investment. And sometimes I play devil's advocate. It's like, man, I kind of see why people would be like, oh, it's too much.
It is. But you know this. Anything worthwhile,
yeah,
it's going to take a lot. Time, energy, money, it is what it is. Nothing great is ever built or achieved overnight. You look at a sprinter like Usain Bolt or Noah Lyles. They train for 30 years for 9 seconds. To be able to say that they're the fastest person in history. The race doesn't even last 10 seconds. They're training 7 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 20 years. 15 to 20 years, right? When they're at their prime, they're between 20 and 25. Probably started racing, 9, 10, 11. Maybe 10, 15 years. Still, if you look at the scope of the work they put in for 10 seconds, I think you can backfill that question. It is absolutely worth it. It's even more worth it when you see what the accumulation, pain and trauma have taken away from your quality of life.
Yeah.
From your ability to accurately assess your emotions and grow on deeper levels with family, spouses, business partners, friendships. When you see the toll that it's taken on many people's health, mental health takes a huge toll on the body. The two are absolutely related. So my answer would be like, yeah, it's absolutely worth it. And it's worth the investment. And the investment is a sacrifice like anything else. But you can't shortchange it. No one wakes up at 19 and says, I want to become the fastest 100-meter sprinter in the world, and then does 4 races and wins. Hasn't happened. Never. Won't ever happen.
No, that checks out, and I'm there with you. I'm also curious on whether this is me or you in the situation, or if it's a close friend, colleague, spouse, whatever, is the person who we see can kind of be helped, but doesn't want to be. I try to look at that scenario in multiple angles, and it's sad on one hand, but also it's like, how do I be wise in that scenario if I'm a quote unquote the potential helper in that relationship?
Having worked with dozens of recovering alcoholics, every one of them will say to you, tons of people around them desperately wanted them to get sober. It could never happen unless they wanted to. Like, The minute they said, I'm done with this, I don't want this anymore, that's when it all changed. But it wasn't the wife or the kids or the parents. And some of them remarkable stories, incredibly, incredibly praiseworthy, huge accomplishment to overcome addiction. To hear them tell stories about how they literally, their lives were gone. They drank everything. Spouses left. Children were taken from them. Jail and prison. All the while, people desperately wanted them to stop. But it could never happen until they made the decision. So to your question, yeah, if you don't want to make the change, no one can make it for you. Like we talk about resources, none of the resources will do anything if you yourself don't want to make the change.
Have you been in that scenario where someone hasn't either like gotten far enough down to the bottom to change? And how have you handled that?
Professionally, I've seen it. Yeah. And thank God I've never experienced that. From an addiction perspective, anyway, I don't know what that's like. But I kind of do, because I've talked about this before. You could become addicted to thoughts. Mm-hmm. You can become addicted to a certain pattern of thinking. And in some ways, that can be just as crippling as a physical addiction. A lot of entitlements and resentments would become addicted to thinking about these things. Very crippling. But I have seen people, unfortunately, hit rock bottom and just continue to punch right through. Yeah. There's not much you can do. Like, you have to take the responsibility for your own situation. At the end of the day, no one's coming to save you. It's no one's job. It's no one's job to save you from your own bad decisions and from your own. People can shed a light. People can point to it. Lots of good Samaritans along the way can come and be like, this is killing you. This is not good. This is going to cripple your life. Your body will try to tell you, whether it's mental health or like substance addictions, but it's on you and you alone. It's on you and you alone.
Yeah. You mentioned Good Samaritan. I think this is related. Maybe you can help me tie it in. But I'm recalling this study, theology students. They were kind of preparing or learning about the Good Samaritan story. And the professor kind of takes them through the stories, like, here's how you can kind of prepare to give this talk and teach it, yada, yada. And then the professor sends this class. He's like, okay, now the lecture's done. I want you to go across the hall and teach, essentially. And so these students go out. What they didn't know was that there was a placed homeless person on the path to the next class, and purposely having these students pass them. And the report finds like it was something like 10 or 7% of them stopped to like ask if the man needed something or acknowledge the person. The rest of them just stepped over and rushed to teach the Good Samaritan story. It was such a like paradoxical story that's like, I mean, you can go many ways with it, but where does that land with you? And what do you take away from it?
In regards to something specific or just in general? Wow, you pivoted quick. I'm like, you can't see it, but yeah, I'm on like rings now. Like, you threw me on a vault. Gymnastics.
Let's go to trapeze now. Take your time. I mean, you can edit this. For me, I'll kind of give my, and then you can gather your thoughts. But it's just, I don't know. Like, I guess it's the whole old tension of like theory and application, right? Of, can we remember daily to kind of apply what we know and not step over like an opportunity to be that knowledge, I guess.
Sure.
Now there's external factors, like they had time pressure to get to the next class, and you have to discern that. But I think we have our versions of that individually and collectively. Of like we have more access to information than the president did in the 50s.
Information overload.
And so I guess bringing it down to the ground is, where are we, that student, just stepping over opportunities to actually apply the wisdom and knowledge we've gained up until this point?
I think it's exactly what I just said. We're just so overwhelmed. Too busy, no stillness. You forget what you're going to teach because you're so focused on teaching it in 20 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is. And you kind of just totally lost the opportunity to
do it.
Right.
Yeah. And in that case, it's like we've almost put the teaching on a pedestal versus actually living it
all the time, from the perspective of like self-help books. And, we scroll on social media endlessly looking at and reading and absorbing a lot of great advice. Meanwhile, your kid's asking you to play with them. And you go, but you're on your phone scrolling. Having all these moments with a 30-second video. And so the opportunity presented itself, but you were just too busy. And you had great intentions.
Yeah.
The intentions weren't bad, but I think we're so rushed and so hurried that we completely miss these opportunities on a day-to-day basis for meaningful connection and impact, because we're just trying to get to the next thing. And it's not malicious.
I think that's a sneaky part, in it not being malicious. But then
it's not.
You zoom out and like it might be over dramatic, but the final outcome of that lived existence over time is like, dude, you just missed the whole thing.
You missed. And to that I say, slow down.
Yeah. Just
slow down. I'm speaking to myself. Slow down.
Yeah. I think human development, right, is less about just getting everything right and more about just showing up more days than not.
Sure.
And it sounds, you see that on a Hallmark card or whatever, but man, if you spend any time with that, I think it's a pretty good compass in all the major buckets: physical health, mental health, professional health.
Right.
Just aim for that. Showing up more days than not. And then another cliche, but let the chips fall.
Sure.
Dr. James Hollis, there's a chapter I think you really love, but I'll tee it up here. He emphasizes the importance of allowing children to forge their unique path, free from the burden of parental expectations and projections. He underscores the necessity of self-awareness in parents to prevent their unresolved fears and unfulfilled dreams from dictating their children's choices. A couple of takeaways from that. Like, make sure you recognize your projections, meaning like, are you trying to live a life through your children? Support, don't direct. So give them the resources and support, but let them make mistakes where it's appropriate.
I just want to live here for a second because I think it's important. I think we both have very specific, similar but different experiences here. Support but not direct. So my parents tried to direct the production of a doctor, and that's it. I think your dad tried to direct the production of an NBA superstar.
Well, overseas pro player, not NBA.
No
chance.
Look,
no chance I was going to the league.
You're a baller, bro. It doesn't even matter where, but you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, we both had experiences where our parents tried to direct. No support. I don't even think there was ever a question. I'm speaking for myself. Like, what do you want to do? We didn't ask that question 30 years ago. I don't think so. I definitely didn't. I think the majority of people who grew up in the time I grew up, that question was just not asked.
You were supposed to be a doctor.
I was only supposed to be a doctor, and anything aside from that was a failure, period, the end. A lot of that is cultural.
Yeah.
But what that does to a person, Like, even though I was like, I don't want to be a doctor, and like, I'm okay not being a doctor, it still grows with you. It moves with you.
Mm-hmm.
And during like hard times, you're like, man, I wish I was a doctor. And just like that root system that we're talking about beneath the soil, you know, there's all these doubts and negative thoughts that happen whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a failure because I'm not a doctor. And so having lived that explicitly and implicitly, like now seeing like kind of what that can do to a person. Yeah, I have no expectations for my kids. I just want them to be successful and I want them to really enjoy what they do. We haven't had those conversations yet, but I think it's important knowing what people like me and you went through. So when I hear support and not direct, I mean, that is triggering on multiple scales. Because a lot of people out there were pushed towards a specific thing. And not many of them achieved them. And I even question about the ones who did achieve it.
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted to do?
Were you living someone else's life?
And like, how miserable is that? Like, is that at all what you ever wanted to do? Because like, let's say you just did it and it just ended up working out. I'm using a very specific example here of a physician. Just culturally, like that's all that matters.
Sure.
Right. And in my culture, anything else, I mean, even in some places today,
Yep.
It's like, what's an entrepreneur? What business person? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
And I'm an attorney. Even that's like, oh, okay.
It's like a consolation to
Yes. Yes. And if not that, a pharmacist. But like, it's kind of like, so you did all that. And like, you know, a lot of people have successful careers with those things in their 50s and 60s. I'm just curious. The answer might be yes. Did you ever want to do that? Is that what you wanted to do? Because spending 30 or 40, 50 years doing something that you had no desire to do, that's terrible. I'm sorry. That's not your fault. We might be poking a bear that doesn't need to be poked, but I think in terms of the future generations, support, don't direct.
Yeah.
I can't echo that stronger.
Yeah, well, you have direct experience with being directed with little or maybe no support outside of one choice.
It definitely causes a lot of negative self-talk, especially as soon as because I bought into it for a while and I was like, biology major. And I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I hate this.
And so it sounds like you listened to that to some degree.
Yeah. Some might argue, you know, we talked about this in our previous podcast, risk taking. That may have been the first risk I took.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing my parents, just completely forging my own path, not even knowing what that was.
Yeah.
Not playing it safe, not getting the, you know, standard sure degree. But that doesn't mean it came without a lot of battling.
I think that's that opens up the aperture too, because I think it's a common like dialogue a lot of people have, you know, and living someone else's life or script is, I think, one of those lenses you mentioned too in our previous episode of like, I'm putting on this lens, the projection of my parents. I'm going to see my life through that.
I mean, we talk about lenses and projections. A lot of times they're assumed on us, definitely by the people who raise us, good, bad, or indifferent. Some of it's great, some of it's bad, some of it's like whatever. But we take on the biases of our parents for sure. And we should just take care to not project those on our kids.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm looping it back to the self-talk and explanatory styles. I think we've had similar but different stories in like the support don't direct piece. I think what's been helpful for me is that change of direction for me, or even leading up to that, was limited in scope. It wasn't all of who I could possibly be. Like looking back in hindsight, it's like that lens or that script at the time and probably leading up to probably a few years ago, I thought was universal.
Sure.
But in actuality, it was limited in scope and season.
Right.
And that was kind of a mini like breakthrough to see myself in that frame. Because like you with being a doctor, it's like, dude, I was conditioned to believe that was the only path.
Sure.
And it took.
But that's even, like I said, even if you have your wits about you to say, no, I'm not going to do this. Even if you decide to go again, when you're conditioned, because I wasn't like 17 and my parents were like, doctor. Yeah. That happened since the first time, right?
Yep.
Doctors were elevated. That specific profession held a high regard in conversations and stature. So like it takes a lot to decondition that, where it's like, wait a minute. Am I going to be okay if I don't do this thing? Yeah. So I hear you.
Support, don't direct. Are you actively trying stuff in that frame with your own kids?
I'm just trying to be really, really aware of what they like and what they're good at and just nurture that, Oldest one's a Lego fiend. Go Lego nuts.
Yep.
You're building and you're processing and you're following instructions. A lot of incredible things. Will he be an architect or an engineer?
Yep.
Maybe not. I don't know. Again, that's why I said, like, we haven't really had those talks yet. But just the other one just loves to draw. Draw all you want.
Yeah. Like
what can this be? What can this look like? And I'm not saying my parents didn't do that, but they didn't do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think playtime is really important for kids, for them to just develop a sense of what they enjoy doing.
Right.
And then there's all the creativity and the stuff that comes with being a kid that you don't want to rush that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're gonna have their first job and be driving tomorrow.
Yeah.
They don't want that. We don't want that for them.
A couple of things come to mind for me on that front with my own kids. I think generally they'll come down specific, but there's a book called Range. And
by who?
Does David Epstein ring a bell?
That's why I asked. It sounds familiar, but
I could be butchering it. But the premise is he kind of highlights the difference. Epstein, right? Yeah, David Epstein. On how specialization statistically just runs to burnout, whereas like trying a lot of different things allows you to develop like true curiosity and kind of helps you kind of flourish on the back end. And I think he uses the difference between Tiger Woods and Roger Federer. So Tiger Woods is super specialized.
Yeah, Roger Federer is a baller tennis. Yeah.
Yeah, but their paths to that mastery were like complete opposite. Where Tiger Woods was, his dad and his family, like, you're going to do golf and golf only, train from 7 to 7 a.m. He did nothing but golf type of thing. And I think Federer, like, I apologize if it's not Federer, I'm just using that. But I think he like played piano, martial arts, played tennis too, and had more of a broad experience leading up to the decision point. It was like, okay, I'm going to do tennis.
And slowly honed in on that.
Yeah.
I generally think that's the way to go. I don't know Tiger Woods.
Yep.
I don't know his family situation. He seems like he enjoys it.
Yep.
I'm sure he enjoys the money and the success and the accolades, but that's not an individual without a lot of setbacks and difficulties as well. So never want to judge another man's path. But if the two paths in general, if you juxtapose them, I think the other one is a lot, as the title of the book, Range, like, try to get them involved in a lot of things and kind of see where they naturally go to. But then you can't be disappointed if they want to go to something that you don't want to. I think that's where we're getting better as a society, where we're seeing, like, there's YouTubers making $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, you can do almost anything. I think if you love it, you're good at it. As we've said before, money will come, but it's really just about a sense of fulfillment.
Yeah. I think just personally reflecting, I think I am doing it in reverse. So I specialize super early. And then as an adult, I've kind of fanned out and I'm doing, or I've done things that seemingly are unrelated, but somehow are like coming together.
Sure.
So it's interesting to think about it that way. But I will say, like from a firsthand experience, is like being so specialized for so long at an early age without having the tools to either like say, no, I don't want to do this, or hey, this is hard, not in a productive way type of thing, has probably influenced why I'm more diverse in what I'm choosing to do now.
Sure. It's probably this sense of like, what else is out there?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have an inclination for something, why not?
Yeah.
As long as it's healthy and productive, why not?
Yep.
See where it goes. Kind of like this.
Yeah. Anything else for you? That's all I have for today, man.
Appreciate you.